So today we're going to talk about facilitation. If you're a team leader, you spend a lot of time at the front of meetings, and you know that the quality of those meetings determines the quality of the output of your team and the quality of that team's experience, and this comes down to facilitation. I've been facilitating leadership team meetings for about 15 years, and I wanted to share with you the top 10 tips that I have for making the most of your meetings as a facilitator. So the first thing you want to know is that the goal of facilitation is to help your team achieve both practical and emotional alignment. When I say practical alignment, I mean we need to know what the tasks are, we need to know what the decisions that were made are, we need to know who's responsible. Really, we just need to kind of come out and say, okay, we know what the plan is, we know what we're doing, right? So practical alignment. But we also need to feel emotionally aligned. We need to feel invested in how we are going to move forward. We need to feel invested in each other. And this is often the more subtle and the more important piece of a meeting's quality, right? Often we end up sacrificing emotional alignment for practical alignment because we default to telling people what to do, ordering people around, getting angry, bullying people in subtle or not so subtle ways into following our position. So we need to make sure that we take stock of both the practical elements and the emotional elements when we're trying to be a good team. This means that our meta goal is productive conflict, because often teams come at things from different perspectives, they have a different set of agendas, and they need to align. And in order to get to the place where they align, they need to go through some kind of conflict in order to get there. But that conflict needs to be productive and not destroy the team or not pull the team apart. So this means the meta goal is to create a space of trust where we feel like we have each other's backs, and a place of psychological safety where people are willing to bring forth their kind of crazy ideas in order to generate so idea A and idea B can kind of interact with each other and generate that disruptive or innovative idea C. This is the way innovation works, by the way, in business and in science, that often it's the most disruptive ideas come because two ideas that seem a little bit disparate have to interact with each other, and then we have to generate or synthesize and create that third idea, that third space. So our goal is to create productive conflict, trust, and psychological safety in the background. Also, as a facilitator, your job is to engineer this situation, not to be at the center of the room and kind of manipulating it or inspiring it or being a big flashy showman. Some of the best facilitators I've ever worked with tend to be rather subdued characters, and they tend to sort of fade into the background. Actually, Lao Tzu put it, I think, in this way, which is, I know he put it in this way 2,500 years ago, that a leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, we did it ourselves. This is the kind of space you're trying to generate as that sort of engineer of the meeting rather than the sort of flashy showman at the front of the room, right? So that's your goal as a facilitator. So now let's get on to the tips. I have 5 tips for things to do before you start a meeting and 5 tips for what to do within the meeting. So before you start the meeting, make sure that you are the right facilitator for this meeting. If you have a strong opinion about the direction the meeting should go or the output, if you have a real strong stake in it, you may not be the best facilitator, because the best facilitator usually sort of sits a little bit on the outside and is a little bit dispassionate about it. They just want people to align. They're not trying to push people to align around a specific thing. So make sure that you're the right facilitator, and if you're not, be willing to recuse yourself. Bring in another facilitator, nominate somebody else on the team to be the facilitator, because really making sure that the facilitator is the right person is really the first thing you need to do. The second thing you need to think about is making sure or understanding what's the conversation we're trying to have. Are we making a decision? Are we sense-making? Are we, brainstorming ideas? What is this meeting about? What's the conversation we're trying to have? What are we trying to achieve? Articulate this to yourself before you design the agenda. Next, assemble the right people. If this is what we're trying to achieve, do we have people who have the right perspective on the problem? Because we want a variety of perspectives, people from different parts of our organization potentially, people who have different identities and different backgrounds, different education, different skill sets. We want a variety of perspectives on the problem because that's what generates the richest and the best outcome. We also want the team to make sure that we have the right authority. If we're making a decision, do we actually have the authority to make that decision for the rest of the organization? And finally, we want people who are engaged, people who are present. So sometimes it's better to have a junior person who is more engaged in the process than a senior person who may be more distracted by a wider variety of things. So make sure that you have the right people in the room. And make sure that you're scheduling the meeting at the right time and, of course, in the right place, right? So the right time, does it fit with people's schedules? Are you catching people when they're fresh at their best time for the meeting? Does it accommodate multiple time zones? Does it do it in a way that feels fair? If you're doing an in-person meeting, are you choosing a place to have the meeting that feels uncluttered, that feels separate, that allows people to do their best thinking? So just really think through. Also, you could think through is this the right time in the quarter? If we're planning next quarter, have we closed this quarter? Do we have the numbers ready for us? So just really think through right conversation, right people, and right time. And then you can design the flow. And usually the flow has three parts. One, we're going to set context. Two, we're going to do the work. And three, we're going to have next steps. And you can have different activities in each of those buckets, but you want to make sure that those buckets are full. Like, what are the presentations? What's the information? That's the input to the meeting. How does the work get done? And how do we then articulate the next steps before we move on? So those are the 5 things you want to do before you start a meeting. During the session, I like to start off by sharing the goal, sharing the agenda with everybody in the meeting and saying, hey, this is the meeting you're in. Is this the right meeting? And also, this is the agenda that I'm trying to hold. Can you help me hold this agenda? And can you help me know if we're going down a tangent or going on a tangent, going down a rabbit hole? Often as a facilitator, because I don't know the context deeply, I need a little bit of help in order to understand that. So ask for some help from the team in order to hold the agenda. I like to keep time very gently for the most part. I use these 2 phrases often. If I'm trying to shut things down and move on, I'll say, anything else? No, good, let's go on, right? So I'll just use the phrase anything else in a question mark, and then I will allow very little time, and then I'll move on to the next thing. If I'm trying to open up participation, I'll say, what else? And then I'll be quiet, and I'll let somebody else fulfill or fill that kind of uncomfortable silence, right? So letting other people fill the uncomfortable silence is really part of your job as a facilitator. What else? Pause. Part 3, you want to monitor the mood. Hey, I'm sensing that this team feels a little rushed. I'm sensing this feels a little anxious. I'm sensing we feel a little disengaged. What's that about, right? Just kind of calling it out. Sometimes that can bring people back in. It can help diffuse things in the room, but you want to just really stay aware of what the mood is like in the room. And step 3 is you want to allow for emergence. Sometimes you might need to change direction. Sometimes you might be needing to give things more time. Don't do this too lightly, but it is really important sometimes to give things more space. And again, you can just call that out to the group. Like, hey, I think we need to give a little more time to this particular item. Is that okay with anything else? Because everybody else, because it might mean that we're not going to get to these other items, right? So bring all of that out. And then step 5 is what I've mentioned, I think, several times in this, which is ask for help. Hey, we are stuck. Does anyone have any ideas how to get unstuck? Hey, here's where I'm trying to go. How might we get there? We really need to resolve this problem. What could we do to resolve this problem? Really kind of conscript the team's participants into facilitating with you and helping you facilitate. That can be hugely, hugely valuable and important. So those are my top 10 tips. If you go to my website, I also have this aligned team assessment, which will help you figure out what conversations your team might need to have. And our book, Radical Alignment, will help you understand. It actually describes a framework for a conversation for particularly high-stakes things. If you're starting a new team, if you're starting a new initiative, starting a new product, starting a new organization, our book, Radical Alignment, can really kind of help you get off to the right, on the right foot. And of course, we'd be happy to help facilitate any of your meetings if that would be helpful. So just go to Alignment Co. and you can find us. Thanks very much for your time and attention, and have a great day.